Welcome to the parish church of St.Mary the Virgin, Weston on Trent. The first question that most people ask is, why is the church so far from the village? The answer, of course, is that this hill or spur overlooking the Trent was the site of the ancient settlement, probably going back a couple of thousand years. Indeed, in the Charter of 1009, in which the manor of Weston was given by King Ethelred to Morcar, it's described in Anglo-Saxon as the hill of the homestead or the hill of the settlement. At the back of the church you can see a facsimile of the 1009 Charter. King Ethelred gave the estate to Morcar, thereby establishing a Saxon presence on the northern bank of the Trent, in an area which was predominantly peopled by Danish settlers. The boundary of Morcar's estate, as described in the Charter, matches exactly the boundaries of the parishes of Weston, Aston and Shardlow right up to the present day. By the 12th century, the churches at Weston and Aston were under the patronage of the Abbot of Chester. The earliest parts of the present building therefore date from around 1200 and were built in the early English Gothic style. The chancel dates from this period with narrow lancet windows and a small priest door, though the walls would originally been much lower and the roof more steeply pitched. There would also have been a much smaller south aisle, evidenced by the lancet window at the west end. The base of the tower and the base of the pillars also dates from around this period. In the 14th century it became the fashion to make the buildings higher and lighter, and this is what happened at St. Mary's from around the year 1300. The pillars and the chancel arch were extended upwards, which gives an unusually tall and graceful impression for an ordinary English parish church. The side aisles were widened and heightened in order to incorporate side chapels or chantry chapels. The south aisle at St. Mary's is slightly older, the windows showing a transition between early English and decorated Gothic style. At the beginning of the 14th century, the tower was also heightened and the spire was added. The north aisle was also extended to match the south aisle, now with fine decorated Gothic windows. They're called decorated because of the ornate floral style tracery at the top of the windows. You can also see an old north door, long blocked up. The west end of the north aisle is particularly interesting because of the evidence of a small doorway and a lean-to building on the side of the church. You can see the line of the roof where the building was. Could this perhaps have been an anchorite cell, a dwelling for a hermit, monk or nun, with the door giving them access into the church? The final addition to the main structure of the building was the addition of a perpendicular Gothic east window, the style of window with a very flattened arch. This would have been added sometime in the 15th century. You can see the outline and the remains of the mullions of this window, but it must have fallen into bad repair, and in more modern times the window cavity was blocked in and these three lancet windows were added to be in keeping with the other windows of the chancel. There were at least 3 altars in the medieval church at Weston-on-Trent. Side chapels were often paid for by rich benefactors, who in the late Middle Ages commonly sponsored a priest to say masses in these chapels for their souls after they died. So at St. Mary's we have the evidence of these chapels in the 3 piscinas, or washing niches, that were used for washing the mass vessels. There's one in each side chapel and one up at the high altar. In the north chapel there's also the remains of an aumbrey, which is a sort of wall safe in which the reserved sacrament would be kept. In the sanctuary of the high altar, as well as the piscina, there's also a sedilia, which is a trio of stone seats in which the priest, the deacon and the subdeacon would sit during Mass. In various places around the church can be found numerous apotropaic markings. These were markings designed to keep evil spirits at bay. A classic design is the daisy wheel, which is marked on one of the old pews quite close to the door. Notice too that the lock on the south door is fitted upside down, which was a device used to confuse the devil if he tried to get into the church. And the markings on the door latch served the same purpose. A lovely feature of St Mary's is the half-timbered and brick porch, which dates from the beginning of the 17th century. Inside the porch we find quite an abundance of 17th century graffiti. Some of it is clearly initials, but there are other markings and images which probably served apotropaic purposes, including a human figure and a hand. In the south aisle there's a fine monument to Richard and Dorothy Sale and their family. Richard Sale was the rector of Weston-on-Trent for an amazing 50 years, between 1575 and 1625, spanning the reigns of Queen Elizabeth I, James I and Charles I. The monument was originally sited in the chancel, beneath the memorial plaque which is on the wall still to this day. It was moved to the present position in the Victorian restoration of the church. St Mary's has some interesting items from the period of the restoration of the monarchy, after the English Civil War and the Commonwealth. The medieval font was most probably taken out of church by the Puritans and demolished, necessitating a brand new font in the year 1661. The oak parish chest dates from the following year, 1662, and bears the initials of the church wardens, who would have had a key each, hence the two locks. Also dating from the early 17th century is the Jacobean pulpit, and also the oak screen under the tower. St Mary's Church, though undeniably a beautiful building, is not a museum but the focus of a living community right to the present day. You'll see in church various modern additions to the building, not least the altar cross and candle holders, which were designed and made by John Skelton of the Royal Academy in memory of John Tranter, who was rector of Weston-on-Trent between 1968 and 1983. And in more recent years, the nave altar and the lectern, which were made by local craftsmen. I hope you've enjoyed this online tour of St Mary's. Do come and visit us sometime.